want to say this. I cannot take any credit for what I have done without giving credit to Neely-Fuller-Jr. See, Mr. Fuller was a guard at the Bureau of Engraving. He wasn't a doctor, he wasn't a college graduate, but he was a man who had started writing about racism. So there I am up the hill at St. Elizabeth's Hospital when I see racism in the histories of black patients, and I'm looking for, well, what else is there about racism that I am yet to understand? And as I've said before, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that's when I happened to meet Neely-Fuller-Jr. at a social event. Black people were sitting around after a Black Power Committee meeting and eating, and there was a voice over in the corner saying racism is a system. And it was like a light bulb went on in my head. I say that what he did in bringing our attention to the fact that we are dealing with a total system structure is as important as Albert Einstein coming up with the theory of relativity and the equation of E equals mc squared. That he provided this critical key. And he said that he was on a mountaintop at a radar site in Japan during the Korean War, and he started thinking about all of the issues that we were talking about in the 1950s. And so it came to him, you know, a lot of thinking. And I don't know if Mr. Fuller would want me to say this, but he is a special human being. And when he was younger, he had been in a car accident. Some of his friends were driving fast as young people, and I think a couple of people were killed in the accident. And he did not have any injury, no damage. He said he might have had a little tear in his shirt. And when the state trooper came along, asked him, "Did you see the accident?" He said, "I was in it." And that could not be believed. They didn't want to believe it. How could he come out in this form? I think he came out in the form because he had a mission. And that mission was to bring to us the concept that we are dealing with a system. And I think I encountered him because he has the same birth date as my father. And it's because of my father that I am a physician. My father was a physician, and his father was a physician before him. And when I came home, when I was 7 years old, I think in the second grade, and I came home with this little stick drawing of a bed and somebody in a bed and then somebody in a little white dress. And so I came home and I said, I'm going to be a nurse, with my little picture of what I was going to be. And my father said, if you're going to be a nurse, you might as well be a doctor. So because of him and because of his father interacted with Ida B. Wells Barnett. I sat in the second grade behind her granddaughter in Chicago. Do you see how things are woven together? And so the influences that you had, I had the influence of taking a course with Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois when I was in college. I stood for 3 hours talking to Malcolm X in 1956. Just as a college student, I went to the mosque in Harlem, New York, didn't know where I was going. Somebody suggested you might be interested in that particular meeting. And so I went wandering up to the meeting, and then, you know, they make the women sit on one side and the men on the other, and they search you. And so to make a long story short, Malcolm was talking about the white people are devils. And so at the end of the lecture, and you know, they had the visitors sitting up front, and I'm a college student, and so Malcolm said, is there anybody who disagrees with anything that I've said? So I raised my hand. I mean, this is really hysterical. I raised my hand, and Malcolm graciously said, yes, sister, something to that effect. And he said, well, what do you disagree with? I said, I don't think all white people are devils. So Malcolm said, well, sister, just, you know, you sit there and wait until I dismiss the meeting, and we can talk further. And so Malcolm and his bodyguards walked with me up to the Muslim restaurant where I'd never been before. And Malcolm and I, you know how restaurants have the counter and then they have the booths. And so Malcolm and I stood at the counter. Now, I'm a college student thinking I'm a Marxist. Malcolm had been in prison, and he had been influenced by the work of Elijah Muhammad. And so I knew that we were black people trying to move in the direction of solving the problems that we had as black people. But Malcolm was very patient in explaining his thoughts to me, and so I could see, well, he's interested in black people. I think I'm a Marxist, I'm interested too. Malcolm said, you're the most aggressive sister I've ever met. Because I was just talking and expressing my views.